Okay, good morning. Looks like we're got some people kind of filing in here, so we'll go ahead and get started. And first, it's important that you understand the risks that are associated with trading futures. So make sure that you read the risk disclosure. And we're going to hop right over here. We'll get right into it. So here is we're just looking at a really simple 5-minute chart here of the S&P 500. And what I'm going to do actually is I will open up, let's do this in the Trader Development channel on Discord. I know you can comment here. It gets kind of tricky for me to follow along with it. So on the Trader Development channel in Discord, go ahead. You can put any questions that you have in there, and I'll keep that open and I'll watch that. So feel free to ask any questions that you have. So let's kind of bring things back. I want to go over a few things, and we'll probably, I don't know how long the session will be here. We'll just go until we've covered everything we want to cover. And if that ends up taking us into the regular session, or however that ends up going, we'll just see here. So all right, so a couple of things we want to talk about. If we go back to Friday, I just posted a recap for all of our MAP members, and this was the target that we had at 47.10 quarter. That was our target one. So we expected that the market would get here on Friday. The market ended up getting up to 11 and 3/4, and so that scenario was fulfilled. And then if you kind of zoom in right here and you look and you see what happened. So market kind of probed above here. And one of the things is, like, sometimes, I mean, I had a price at 11/4, but this was a new all-time high. The high was 11 and 3/4, and sometimes I feel like it's better, less is more sometimes. And so this was what we were really leaning on. This was important. We'd said that if 11 or if 10 quarter held, that we would be, this would be an area that we could see hold, and we could see some pullback. And why that was is because if you go way back, what kind of had us skeptical of any sustained move up starting off is that if we go back to the beginning of Globex, which is right here, and then this is the break, we had this 65 quarter target down here, and it never got hit. And so that by itself was sort of like, well, I don't know what the statistics are. It'd be great to have that. It's just not something that I've worked on building and automating, although I think it's probably something that's in the cards at some point here. But either way, this would have been the first target one. And in my mind, the chances of going and hitting that target one are very, very high. I want to say pushing 90, but let's say at least over 80%. So that kind of lingers in the back of my head when I am seeing something like that. So here we have basically what we're looking at was this break above this CP right here at 92.5. That gave us this 10 quarter. So what I said in MAP on Friday morning is that the scenario was really two things. The scenario was that there was a target lower that hadn't been achieved, and there was a target higher that hadn't been achieved. And then when this move happened up to here, probed through here, came back, notice what happened. It held to the tick right here, and then ended up selling off from here. I was actually short Friday most of the morning into the afternoon, waiting for this drop, and then ended up getting some of this again going into the close after a pretty decent bounce, about a 22-point bounce. And so and then sold off again another 14 points or something. So what happened then? Let's go into the Globex session. Over the weekend, the United States government agreed that they should spend a whole bunch of money that we don't have. And apparently that's good news. So the market had gapped down to here and then ended up shooting up. And you know, imagine if your spouse came home and said, "Hey, by the way, we're gonna go spend, I don't know, let's say it's the equivalent of a 10 million or $100 million or whatever the number might be." It's so hard to wrap your head around what $1 trillion is. And you're like, wait a minute, we don't have that kind of money. But some people think that's good news. So the market has you know, really reacted here to that. But we'll see how that lasts going into the whole thing's a house of cards anyway. So we'll just see how long that can be sustained. So let's go right into it here today then. I don't know that I would really call this any kind of a break. So all I'm going to use the methodology. Oh yeah, we don't need to worry about that because I had the wrong day loaded there. So here's today's prediction point. So we could measure this since it was below here, and I would say no problem to measure this up to there and then back to right here. So that gives us 90 half. And then I'm not going to look at all the other stuff. I'm just going to show you what I would measure, and then I'll go through and I'll build how I would build a map around what I've measured. I have these set so that I have they look the same on mine, whether it's, I mean, essentially I'll bring this down so you can see it. So it's the same colors, but this is a dashed line and that's a dotted line when I'm measuring for an extension down and when I'm measuring for an extension up. So they look slightly different, but same colors. And that's really for me so I can look at it and be able to just glance at it and know exactly what I'm looking at. And sometimes you get a lot going on in the same area, so for me it's important to be able to easily see what I'm looking at there. Okay, so then I would say this is the break. I would measure this to there as the break back above there. So right to there. And that gives you here, here. I want to see this getting used right there. That was pretty decent. We've taken off a bit up to there. So let me just show you what I would, some of the things I'd look at. I might bring this, oh, what did I do? Did I have that down there? Yeah, so I might bring this like this. Because I have the, I can kind of cheat. I can see after the fact how this all played out. So what looks the best? What's the market been using? It's not really about being right. It's what has the market been using that would be useful for me here. So here's what I'm looking at. Notice that this all looks really good. Then this held right here. It broke above here. It came back and held here to the tick. This then held, and then it's moved up. That was the T4 right there, and it's moved up through that. So that's not typically how I would draw it, so I'm not going to do it that way, but I do look at things like that. So if it looked really, really compelling, I would keep it that way, but to me it's not really compelling. So I'm going to keep it this way, the way I would normally have it. And you know, at some point it might, this T4 got used pretty close to the tick, so I'm going to keep it that way. But that's just how, that's the rules of how I'd normally draw that. Alright, so then this is the break above this KP, and I'm going to go back here and erase this because it just makes it too much going on here with everything else going on. We can come back in and draw it in if we decide we're going to need it. So here's your break of the KP. And there's your target 2 of that one. And then we want to measure this next break of this next KP to me. So that's the one we measured, I think. Is that right? No, we measured that one. So we want to measure this break up above right here. So to me that's going to be this little doji candle right here. And I'm going to bring that up to here, back to here, back to there. really not my favorite. And there's a lot going on here. So let's see. Yep. So okay, then let's measure this one. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. So I'll unpack all this once we get it all measured here, but for now, yeah, okay, good. So that things kind of start to line up here. But there really is just a lot going on here. So here's the T1, here's the the T2, the T1, and the T3. See why I have them different colors? Because then I'd have to go back and try and figure out. But I already know green is T1, magenta is T2, and this orange color is T3. So I have all these kind of stacked together right here. And we haven't broken above this CP, so I don't have anything to measure there just yet. So any kind of a break back below, we haven't broken that, we haven't broken that. So let me tell you what I see, and I'm going to be really full disclosure here because I know in the back of my mind I can't get that 65 quarter out of the back of my head, okay? So that is definitely, you know, and that's in the back of my mind. So the next thing I see, we have broken here and didn't come, so we really didn't come back and test here, we really didn't come back and test here, and we really didn't come back and test here. So whenever the market just kind of goes right through all these different levels, I don't, for me, I'm just thinking, okay, you know, it doesn't, it's very likely we're going to come back in and test some of these levels. I mean, here, here. Now, if the market takes off, I don't know, maybe somebody thinks this is really good news, what's happened over the weekend, and the market's going to just absolutely take off. But let me show you. So there's some things I'd want to see in order for that to happen. I think this is our 50% level, so I'm just going to throw, haven't changed that fib tool. So that's 50% right there, 84 half. Yeah, so this area is going to be something to keep an eye on right through. There's just so much going on in here, and you can really see that. So if they could take out this O2, yeah, I'm just trying to think of how I'm going to break this down here this morning. So first things first, I need to see every T1 would need to get taken out here. So this is going to be a little tricky because if they do go to 0.2 3/4, that's not going to be, if that's all we get, that's not a break of the CP, it's literally just 2 ticks above it. And in this case, we could really consider that achieved since we touched the CP to the tick and it's 2 ticks in front of that T1. This is really 3 ticks beyond the CP. So what I'd want to see then is I'd want to see the market exceed this 0.5 3/4, which is the T4. And then to me that would open up the door probably for this T4 and that T4. So, okay, see this? So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Keep in mind, this is basically 1 tick in front of the all-time high. What else do we have here? So my game plan today is not all the time am I always looking at both sides of the market, but I'm interested in a short around this area. I don't like that it's here right now. We've got 10 minutes till the open. I don't love that it's up here right now. So not my favorite thing here, but this area potentially for a short, it's fairly aggressive right out of the gate. Maybe right here, if this area, so all I'm thinking is what holds. So if what holds, then what am I looking for? And then in this case, actually, let's go back and look over here and see. Yeah, okay, so 09. Let's change this to a 10-minute chart because I kind of like that for getting a better view of the bigger picture here. So this area up to 09. Yeah, so that pretty much lines up with what we're seeing over here. So if we get this 05 up to 09, so somewhere in this area, I like it short, at least as an attempt, at least trying it short. And part of that is because I'm looking back over here and I'm seeing from, this kind of what's happening right here. This candle's probably the best thing to look at, and then look at all the trading that happened in here. So obviously there were sellers in here that were holding this back from going any higher. And I'm personally likely, a lot of it for me is in the moment of watching it, but I am likely willing to take a shot on it and just see if they end up holding this area up here again. So that's number one. And then for lower, it's not, so I wouldn't be surprised at all to see if things really kind of get, if things are maybe a little bit either choppy or, because there's no extremely clear path for lower, and even if it does go lower and it is, let's say it's a one-way drop down to, let's call it 65 quarter, whatever, maybe it would only be here because but I still have that 65 quarter back there. I'm not ignoring that. I'm not saying I want to be a buyer there, but I am aware of that area. So this something like that could be to the T2 right here. But so many things can change on the way down here, meaning we can get a whole bunch of different measurements for on the way down here. So if they're going to hold for higher, this would be probably the very, very last chance, would be like this midpoint here in between the prediction points. And I am not crazy about that at all. We could get a reaction here, but I don't know that we're going to get a new all-time high from here. This could work for 20 points, but I don't know that we're going to get a new all-time high. So, all right, so here's some push. It would be great to see a bit of a spike into the open up into one of these levels and then see if it will turn around up there. If it doesn't turn around, I'm going to keep my risk small. I know the all-time high is basically right here, one tick above that. So I'm keeping that in mind. Looking through here, it could probe through there. But then that would open the door for here and here. And at this point, while we can't measure this yet, whenever this does pull back from this break right here, there's so much going on here, but it's just the way that it is here this morning. Then whenever this does pull back, we can measure this break above the CP, and whatever that T1 is, we're going to need to take that out to get anything more to the upside. So I'll come back today later on and we'll do another video and we'll break down what actually plays out here, but I just want you to get an idea of what I'm looking for on this. So a spike up into here in the open, I'm definitely interested in getting that, and hopping on that train and seeing if we can get some follow through for lower. And maybe that never happens, and so if it breaks out, that's fine. I'll buy it on a pullback. Not really that big of a deal. It'll be one or two trades that I am giving it a shot to see if I can get any follow through for lower. For lower, going to be really important depending on how high we get above this 0.275. We're going to need to get back below that. We'll need to get back below all the T1s. So here, 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 those are all areas where if I'm short, I'm likely taking some profit depending on how the market's moving, and that's why I said likely. And one of the reasons I think a lot of traders struggle is because they want an absolute. They want a definite, you should always do this and never do that. And there are very few things in trading that work that way. Okay, so here we go. You have you got to get back below here, back below here, back below here, back below here. This was kind of already tested and used here, but it's still something to keep in mind. So if this were to stop in no man's land up here, I might consider a buy off of here or a buy off of here. But if we get below this and then we can hold below this one, So if we come down below, let's call it whatever, 94, 93, if we come back down into this area, and if we're holding below O2, I'm taking that as a sign of that we're going to get some more selling. And I already told you, and I think full disclosure here, I have some bias coming in from Friday that's hard to get out of the back of my mind, which is that we have this target down lower. The market kind of stopped nowhere. Like this is kind of the middle of nowhere on Friday. There's nothing really here that should be holding this thing up like this, from what I can see. And so I'm not really convinced. This to me, I look at it like the market's still in a range, and we're going to just kind of have to see how it's going to play out here today. But as long as, I'd say the first part of this range is it goes here, extending up to here, extending up to here, obviously taking out the all-time high, that would be a really good sign for more, and then we know what those targets are up here. So then on the other side, we've got here, we've got here. So if this were to spike down here at the open, I might try and snatch something off of this, or one of these, and then preferably probably more this one, but you never know how they might buy it here, push it up to here, and then bring it down lower, or it could just keep going and break out and go to a new all-time high. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just telling you how I'm planning my own trades around what possibly could happen. So I break out scenarios and I go, okay, if this holds, then this, and if that holds, then this, and then I find places that make sense to trade. For me, even if it was here, which I would prefer to sell up into this area, but even if I sold here, let's just call it 05, if it got down to 65, that's 40 points. So I can risk a couple of points to make 60 points. Now, if you're going to bail out on this trade when it's up 5 ticks, then don't do it, probably. I mean, if that's your, if that's how you're going to manage it, or if that's the habit that you have. But for me, I could hold this all day, or all of today and all of tomorrow for a move that's 40 points down. Now, am I going to get 40 points on all of my contracts? No. I'm probably, if I'm short 05, I'm probably going to cover some of it right here and try to put some more on a bounce. And then I'm going to try and get short, if it breaks down again, I'll cover some more and try and get some more on a bounce. Unless the bottom just falls out of it, which is highly unlikely to happen anyway. Okay? And then I'd for sure be covering some in front of here. And, advantages to trading size is you have a lot more options. I'd be covering some here. And then the thing that I can't account for is I can't account for what's going to happen as things get underway and what other breaks of other prediction points happen. And so, that's just something that we'll have to keep an eye on. So this is going to likely be what we can measure. There's your T1 at 06. That's just above this 05. So I like that. I think that gives you some, but you can see how things start to get, so if you just notice a couple of things that I look at, see how there's so many prices stacked up here? So there's no real easy, clear path for higher. Even if it breaks out, it should still come back and check these prices. And then look on the downside. Notice what's down here. It's like clear skies down here. So that, there's just a lot, like the easier money to me looks like on this side of things. And I have a methodology that I follow, which is that we have a target down here that's unfilled, and the market hasn't given me anything yet, and that doesn't mean it's not going to. And when it does, that's fine. I'll literally just go with whatever the market gives me. But the market hasn't given me anything yet that tells me we're not going to go hit that target. So at a minimum today, maybe tomorrow, depending on how things are, this 71 area is the, we have the same scenario. So how long is this going to play out? This looks so similar to Friday. Look at Friday. Oh, that's not what I want. Look at Friday, what happened. Here's your move down. There's your T1 unfilled. Ends up moving up to the other T2. Here's your today. Move down, T1, and unfilled, and ends up moving up over into here. Okay? So we'll just have to see how this is all going to play out. Market's open. I am actually going to go trade because it's really hard for me to trade and post in live trade signals and walk you through everything in real time. So I'll be back today. I'll come back and do a review here, and we'll just kind of go from there. But you know, that's what I'm looking for here today. Hopefully that's helpful. And I'll be back today. I'll do a recap. We'll post the link for that. So we'll see you back for that later. And great, you know, good luck with your trading. Trade smart. Take it one step at a time. And let's see what ends up playing out here today.